I love cool, lesser talked about types of training that can help you to achieve awesome results. Isometrics ticks all those boxes and then some, and in this post I'm going to share two even lesser known forms of isometrics that might make a huge difference to your strength gains. But first, a quick recap. So isometrics are contractions with no movement. These come in two flavours, overcoming isometrics and yielding isometrics. The former refers to an isometric contraction against an immovable object, trying to bend an iron bar for instance, or push down a tree, like the Indian wrestler Gamma. The latter kind, yielding isometrics, refers to any attempt to hold a position against resistance, such as when holding a handstand or keeping a barbell halfway above your chest with arms bent during a bench press. Both kinds of contraction have their benefits, but it's overcoming isometrics that will help you to increase your max strength without necessarily increasing muscle size. This is accomplished by increasing your ability to recruit motor units in the muscle. In other words, the nervous system adapts to enable you to use your muscles more totally. This also occurs during 1 rep max. Here you use 100% of your available force to move a weight, thus training yourself to use your muscle at maximum efficiency. But the limitation here is that during a 1 rep maximum, that maximum force within the muscle only occurs for a couple of milliseconds, at the most difficult point of the movement. What sets an overcoming isometric apart is that this maximum contraction is continuous, allowing for a truly max effort over an extended period. The results speak for themselves. Most old-time strongmen used some form of overcoming isometrics. Modern strongman Dennis Rogers has done the same thing to the point of exceeding even elite athletes in his motor recruitment. As I've discussed often, this was also a key component of Bruce Lee's training. To utilise overcoming isometrics to their fullest, you should aim to hold each contraction for around 6 seconds. You should train multiple joint angles, as the area of effect is only somewhere between 10 to 30 degrees, and you should avoid using overcoming isometrics for more than 10 minutes total during a workout. But now we're going to take this concept even further with two additional forms of isometrics. So the first is ballistic isometrics, and these are sometimes also referred to as explosive isometrics. Either way, you might be thinking that they sound a little bit contradictory. I've mentioned these before, but we're going to be using them in a slightly different way now. The idea is that you're going to try and recruit max effort as quickly as possible against the immovable object, exploding into that effort and thereby potentially increasing your starting strength and the ability to quickly reach top power for explosive movements. You can of course rep these out, holding the contraction for only very brief periods, or you can combine the concepts so that you start the contraction as explosively as possible and then hold it for a little while after. But there's another interesting way to incorporate ballistic isometrics too, because if you generate as much force as you can for around 6 seconds, measuring it with a hand dynamometer say, you will inevitably find that it starts to taper off towards the end as your muscle fibers fatigue and give out. If you started at 60 kilograms, you might finish at a much lower 48 kilograms. But now try making a conscious effort to explosively contract again during that contraction, and you'll find you actually do have a little force left in the tank that you weren't using, and you can bump it back up to say 55 kilograms. In other words, by adding a ballistic isometric during a longer overcoming isometric, you can recruit even more muscle fiber. Why? Because the nervous system never allows you to recruit 100% of your muscle fiber, or even 100% of your fast twitch containing motor units. There are always some left in reserve to prevent injury and to conserve energy. So as you start to fatigue the motor units you're currently using, you can send a new neural drive to recruit even more large ones. In doing so, you dig deeper, recruit more strength, and force more neural adaptations. So this is a great hack for building even more strength from isometrics. At the other end of the spectrum, we have quasi isometrics, which have much more in common with yielding isometrics. The idea in this case is to move through a complete range of motion as slowly as possible, potentially taking minutes to complete a pull-up or press-up. This is much harder than it may at first sound, but it does numerous things. Firstly, it trains you to much more finely control the amount of force that you're exerting during the movement. You need to recruit and/or release just the right amount of motor units to gradually raise or lower your body. It gives you much more precise control. Secondly, it forces you to maintain full concentration through the entire range of motion and to feel that feedback from your muscles as you do. Many people say that this can help to fix technique issues. Finally, it forces you to contract your muscles continuously during the stretched position, which is well known to elicit hypertrophy and strength gains. In short, if overcoming an explosive isometrics build brute force and power, Quasi Isometrics can be used to develop finesse and precision. Combine both and you can begin to control your muscles in a way that even strength athletes rarely manage. To get started, aim for around 30% of your 1 rep max, or use body weight to avoid injury. Then aim for a 30-second contraction, and the same for eccentric. Obviously, if you can't manage that right away, 15 seconds, 20 seconds, that's fine. This is very difficult and you do want to build up to it. During the lowering phase, you can choose to use either active or passive contractions. Active means that you're engaging as much force and muscle control as possible. Passive means you're attempting to relax and use only the necessary strength. The former is better for hypertrophy, effectively being very similar to a negative rep or a weighted stretch. The latter can improve strength and control and also help you to improve your endurance and efficiency. It's a fantastic tool for rock climbers, for instance. When using these, avoid extremely complex movements that put you in a compromised position. This technique is not suitable for deadlifts, for instance. A good way to use them is at the end of a workout as a kind of finisher. You can also just do a whole session of Quasi Isometrics if you want to mix things up. These aren't the only methods for improving muscle control and fibre recruitment. There's lots more I want to look into in future, including Maxic and the max solding method, electromyostimulation, and of course I've got tons of other stuff on the way as usual, that digital polymath series, a video on assassin training, the next part of the Nightwing workout. So if that all sounds good, then thanks a ton for watching, and I'll speak to you next time. Bye for now. And by the way, this video is partly a response to a request from Viking Sloth in the comments, so a shout out to him, and thanks a ton for the suggestion.